We're live. Welcome to the All Ground Pod.
Welcome to the All Ground Pod,
And
episode
20?
20.
Yeah, episode
and
20.
Today we finally did it for you. we actually have a guest on.
Yeah. This is huge for the
yes.
podcast.
Yeah. A big turning stone, because we were talking about this, maybe doing like a guest at episode 9, 10.
Mm-hmm.
That didn't happen. But here we are. We're a little late, but better late than never.
You have to get the right guess.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
That's what we were waiting
Quality over quantity.
Well,
Yes.
and honestly, so I also produce Krystal, who you've not introduced yet, but I produce her podcast for her. So this is going to be a dual purpose. This is also going to be the Rev Health podcast. But if you're a fan of All Ground and you're watching or listening to it, then that's great. Maybe go check out Rev Health as well, because there's a bunch of good episodes there.
Well, hey, that's a great thing, because you two have known each other for a while, so I think Ty, it would be a great, it would be good for us if you could just introduce to the podcast listeners, Krystal, our guest.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely, no
Yeah,
problem.
Ty, how will you introduce me?
Okay, the
Make
most
sure it's
narcissistic, pedantic. No, so Krystal Peters,
Yes.
she's a certified nurse practitioner. She's the owner of Rev Health over at Ranchera. If you're in Reno, it is a fantastic practice. And essentially, if I were to sum up what Rev Health is it is a preventative, proactive health practice for people that care about their health. So instead of waiting until a car breaks down and going and saying, maybe I should change my oil now, if you change your oil regularly, the car runs for 300,000 miles, and human beings are really no different. If you proactively attack your health and say, hey, I want to be as healthy as I can be, that's what Krystal does. Now, she will also troubleshoot problems that people have, because almost all of us go in slightly broken. So she'll tune us up, but then she'll keep the motor humming and staying healthy and all that. So I'm excited to have her on here. I think she can offer a lot of insight, because I'm an old jiu-jitsu dad, and I think a lot of people are. And all you old, I'm talking to you, Rich.
I'm also an old jiu-jitsu dad.
Except no children, but that's okay.
No children.
I'm getting there.
We
I'm a
need
dad, but
we need to like
I'm
know
getting to
how
the
to
old
take
part.
care of ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah, and Laird he's an old soul. So.
The sooner the better, too. I think what I'm seeing is that, well, first off, Ty, thank you. That was a great introduction. You had me at certified.
Oh, yeah.
But what I'm seeing is that each generation is kind of exhibiting signs of illness earlier and earlier, because of our food system and because of the things we're exposed to, and because we haven't really been taught the right ways to take care of our bodies.
Mm-hmm.
And so my personal goal is to make it better for the future by using kind of our generations as guinea pigs, because I want our babies to be healthy, and they're not set up for that right now. So we got to fix it.
Yeah. Was that kind of the motivation behind starting Rev Health, is just setting the next generation up for success?
No, I think it was more actually selfish in that I was really unhappy with what I was seeing in the medical field, and I knew we could do better. I didn't know how, really. I had a couple ideas that started Rev off, but I knew I wasn't feeling 100% with doing all the right things, supposedly. And I knew that there was more to the story. And then I saw, it was actually during COVID that I finally took the leap. I saw just feeding on people's fears, and they weren't healthy and they weren't getting the right information. And then an old CrossFit buddy of ours, Dave Frankel, actually introduced me to Wild Health, which was the genomics portion of, and so I realized, oh my gosh, we can do this differently based on our genes. And then from there, it's just kind of unfolded layer after layer. It's like an onion.
Yeah.
Delicious.
Or an ogre.
That's you, Ty.
I was going to say that's Laird.
Hey, and what I should do, by the way, is I should introduce you guys for the people
Yes.
on Rev Health. So start with Laird.
Yeah, sure.
Despite Laird, everybody thinks he's the older brother, but he's not. He's the younger brother.
I just look it. Weathered.
So both of these guys are my jiu-jitsu coaches, but they've both been in combat for pretty much their whole lives. Laird is an undefeated MMA fighter in Bellator before it was purchased by PFL. He's, he tore his ACL and he's undergone a series of like health dilemmas that he's trying to get past. And once he does, the goal is to get back and fight in the UFC. And just so to put it in perspective, he has had training partners through the years that are currently, top ranked fighters in the UFC. So he has full contact sparred, fought guys that are like winners in the UFC. He's at that level. He just needs to get healthy, and that's where Krystal comes in, and hopefully others. Elias is the older and distinguished brother. No children yet, but he has a fiance, so hopefully he'll produce some babies for his mom. But that's beside the point. He is also a high-level combat practitioner and is a world champion in combat jiu-jitsu. Has been competing in MMA and IBJJF for years and years, and he's on the comeback road. So your next fight is when?
We'll compete at the end of August, and then hopefully October,
and that'll
November.
be BJJ.
Yes,
and then hopefully November will be MMA.
Yes,
and maybe UFC BJJ.
Maybe. Yeah.
Okay.
We'll see.
So there's a lot of stuff on the horizon for him. So for those of you that are tuning into Rev Health, that's who these guys are. I don't want to give them big heads, but they're pretty cool.
Welcome to the Rev Health podcast.
Yeah.
Thanks, Ty. I appreciate that.
Yeah, what an introduction.
Yeah, Ty's good at introductions.
Yeah. Mine fell a little flat, but no,
if you weren't such a loser, it would have been
cool. But yeah, back to Krystal. Kind of, how long, was that medical journey, through Western medicine, through being a nurse practitioner, before you started to feel like, maybe there's more that I can do here?
Honestly, unfortunately, it was pretty quick when I went the allopathic route. So I was raised pretty much by a hippie who didn't believe in medicine, and that was cool. But I also think that, I went to actually massage therapy school. I didn't go to college initially, and then I moved to Japan and I taught yoga.
Whoa.
And then,
Cool.
When I came home, I wasn't super bendy or anything, but anybody could teach yoga apparently.
Yes.
Right.
So
yes.
I came home and I needed health insurance and a steady job. So I kind of went the nursing route. And that was actually, nursing school was pretty holistic. They give you a lot of physiology, a lot of, it makes a lot of sense. And then you get working in a hospital where you're like, I'm not using any of that. We're just giving these people medicine. What's going on?
Yeah.
And I did that for a while. And then I saw these dummies I was working with getting their nurse practitioners, and I was like, if they could do it, I could do it. Right. So,
hopefully none of them are listening right now.
I guarantee they're not.
Okay, good.
They're not trying
but
to
if you are, you're
optimize.
a dummy.
Yeah. So then, so I won't name any names. So then I went that route. I actually was working with Nancy Conley here in town. She was a holistic physician. She was an MD. And she had a lot of things right, but, she was like, paleo, don't eat the banana. And then I think she was 52 and had a heart attack and died.
Whoa.
That didn't do anything good for a brand. That was bad for the brand.
Yeah, so I was like, there might be more to this story.
Yeah.
And then they were, kind of, St. Mary's took over her practice, and I didn't really want to be involved in that. I was pregnant with my second. And so I was just kind of working per diem at urgent care. But the whole time I've always been really interested in health and the human body and how it works. So, it just kind of added up. And like I said, it's just constantly been kind of one thing led to the next. And luckily, after my last day at the urgent care where I saw 99 patients in a 10-hour shift, I was like, I don't like this. It's not safe. I'm not helping people.
Yeah.
And luckily my husband can pay the bills, and I told him I'm not going back. And he said, okay, well, what are you going to do? And so, without him, I wouldn't have been able to do any of this or build any of this. But kind of every step of the way, I've been like, you know what, this makes a lot of sense to me. I'm going to follow my intuition and research it and try to figure it out. And, I really believe that the universe, God, whatever you want to call it, has just opened door after door after door to lead me to help people to get you guys where you need to be.
Yeah, that's such a like cool experience, especially like having a partner that's gonna like support you through any one of your decisions, you know, whether it's like kind of taking a step back before you like take those few steps forward. And yeah, I mean, like, when did you and your husband, how long have you been married?
Well, we've only been married. September will be 10 years of our wedding anniversary. We actually had kids and then got married.
Yep.
Who
Likewise.
does that kind of
Yeah.
crazy stuff?
we 15 years together in September. So
Oh, that's
so
amazing.
yeah, and it was from the get go. He pretty much always had my back, which is
Yeah.
really, really good because I don't think I've always
Yeah,
had
yeah.
his as well. I'm like, no, you need to keep. He's like, right now, he's like, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't feel
Yeah,
like it hasn't now because he's in allopathic, and he, you know, there's a time and a place for the hospital and for all that, but
Yeah.
it's not really aligning with his values as much. I'm like, well,
Right.
you got to pay the bills because I got.
Yeah,
He
yeah.
pays the bills so I could go to work.
Yeah, well, there's specific times, you know, everything has a time,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know, to run its course. But that's really cool. Was he in Japan with you when you went and taught?
No, he was. We met 15 years ago in Las
Yeah.
Vegas. Actually, I'm from Southern California originally. He's from Missouri. He
Yeah.
was doing his medical internship
Yeah.
there, and I was a nurse there. I was never going to date a doctor, and
Right.
then just charming guy. I mean,
Yeah.
Ty will tell you, he's
So charming.
Yeah.
So charming.
I don't know, but it's worked out pretty well.
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
That's
But yeah,
beautiful.
choosing the right partner. I don't really feel like I chose him. I feel like he kind of chose me. Maybe that was better.
Right.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. Well, I
But
think
it
like,
worked out. It's
yes.
you have to have the right partner, right?
So it's so huge. Just like, I mean, I think when you spend so much time with someone, you sort of, you know, become like that person.
Yeah.
You take in a lot of qualities that person has, and vice versa with, you know, them. And I think it's just so important to have like, you know, a kind, caring, like emotionally supportive partner, you know, that's gonna like, and like,
the same values.
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Like,
yeah, similar values and things.
If
Yeah.
I had somebody who wanted to party on the weekends, you know, I wouldn't be where I was.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
it seems little things, but when you look back and how they add up and how they matter, it's like, oh, that's pretty cool.
Yes.
You fit together like puzzle pieces.
Yeah, it's so true. And just like stories like that always kind of like blow my mind, just, you know, because he's from Missouri, you said, and,
Mhm.
Yeah.
you know, just meeting in Vegas. And yeah, it's just like, just further, you know, strengthens my belief that everything happens for a reason. Everyone you meet is like, you're supposed to meet in this
Yeah.
life, you know?
I definitely believe in
yeah.
divine intervention.
Right,
Like,
Yeah.
right.
And the crazy thing is, you specifically have gone through some trials. You are going through some trials.
Yeah.
I believe 100% that A, you're going to come out stronger on the other side for it, and B, it will be for a reason to
Right.
help other people.
Yes.
I don't think we're here on this earth to just win for ourselves. I think that we're here to do service and to learn and to help each other. And that's, you know, I'm probably more of an introvert, so that's a little bit hard for me to accept, but I think community is huge. And I think actually CrossFit gave me a lot of that after kind of losing it from a religious perspective, maybe. But CrossFit,
Yes.
man, the community, I think that's why it's lasted so long.
Yeah.
And I see that coming up with jujitsu now too. There's even between the jujitsu gyms, and I think it's an important piece that we've missed the last 15 or 20 years.
There's I have to mention this because again, everything happens for a reason. Maybe. I don't know. But I will say that it is at least coincidental that I literally just read a chapter out of the Ryan Holiday book, Discipline, Right Thing Right Now. And the chapter was about Buckminster Fully, who was a really well-known scientist. And he was just about to commit suicide. And he was just about to like swim out into Lake Michigan and die. He was like, he had buried a child. He felt like he was a failure. And then a voice in his head said, how dare you take yourself away from the world because you have work to do. You are not here for yourself. You're here to serve other people. You're here to make contributions to mankind. And then he went on to do amazing things and invent things and make discoveries. And And so when people feel down, they feel like, oh, I don't matter. No, you do. You do. And there's always potential in you to serve other people. And so, you almost said that chapter verbatim when you were talking a second ago. And I was like, wow, that is crazy. I just read that. It's so good.
Well, and I think this voice that nobody knows where it's coming from has a great point. And Ty, you're a real good example of that. I'll be honest. He's somebody that always takes care of other people before he takes care of himself, almost to a fault, I would say.
Definitely.
We agree.
But it is important.
Yeah. And, I think I think suffering is a part of life. And I think I don't know, I was watching this monk wisdom video the other night because I was
Those are good.
feeling a little down, but the video was called how to be unshakable, and he just talks a lot about look, there will never be a feeling of happiness if there weren't a feeling of pain, or if there weren't a feeling of sadness. So all those things are supposed to happen. And then also as I dive a little deeper into faith and Christianity, recently I've been going to Ty's church and just kind of exploring it. A common topic that I see, because whenever I start exploring something, I have to explore both sides. And so I've been listening to really intelligent atheists debate with really intelligent Christians. And a huge topic of conversation is suffering, and yeah, I think it's just a necessary thing in this life, and if you weren't able to go through that, you maybe wouldn't have as much respect for all the good things that come your way. And so adversity is a privilege, and suffering's a privilege, and if we can get through that, we only come out of it stronger. So
well, and I think sometimes, and I this goes kind of to Christianity, but I think a lot of people believe it too, is sometimes when you feel like you're at rock bottom and you just say, hey, I don't got it. What, that's when I get my biggest answers. That's when I have my biggest breakthroughs.
yes.
I can't tell you how many times I've been laying on my closet floor crying. And the next day, and I'll say a little prayer in my head, or I'll just kind of be like, well, I don't know. I give up. And then the next day I'll just get something will come across my desk or inspiration. And then it's huge breakthrough.
Yes.
It makes a huge difference.
Well, I'm jealous because your closet is big enough for you to lay down in and cry. Mine is not. I have to cry outside my closet, which I do regularly, but I can't fit in there.
Now, is it because
if you
it's
really work on getting into the right
you're not in the
position,
right
I bet
fetal
you could-
position.
yeah.
Fair enough.
now, is it actually your closet, or is it Supa's closet?
It's Supa's closet. I'm just renting space.
You should try the tub.
Yeah.
The tub's a good place to
That's
cry.
a good place. Crack a cold beer, lay in the tub, and just let the water hit you.
No, I'm saving that. When my son finally submits me, then I'm going to lay in the tub and cry. And when somebody comes in, I'm going to say, get out.
Make sure Reed's recording it.
Yeah. He actually, so when we rolled yesterday, he was all excited because he was pretty sure he was going to get me. And I was pretty sure he wasn't. And it turns out I was right. But he's like, okay, record this. He's like, wait. Only start recording when it's pretty obvious that I'm going to get the submission. I'm like, no, just record the whole thing. You can always delete it. And he's like, okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
And you whooped him.
I don't know. I mean, I don't want to say whooped him. I won.
In case he's listening.
Yeah. Hey, here's the deal. This is the deal with dads. If you're a dad and your kid does jujitsu and you do jujitsu, you want your kid to beat you.
Yeah.
Like you want your kid to get good enough to beat you. I want that more than anything, but I also want him to actually beat me.
Yeah.
I don't want him to just be like, "Oh, you got me," Like I want him to whoop me all over the place. That would be awesome because you want your kids to be better than you.
Yeah.
I took that a little too far when I could beat my dad.
Yeah, then
Yeah.
you did whoop him all over the place. You just beat
He was
the
like,
crap out
okay,
of him.
buddy, I get it. You can beat me now. I was like, you don't get it enough.
Yeah.
Let's go
Elias
again.
Is it okay to release the triangle 45 seconds after they tap? Is that normal?
Elias definitely showed no mercy to my dad once he started beating him. But for me, it was always like when I actually submitted or just, was able to beat my dad, it was like this weird, because I just always thought of him as this like unstoppable force.
Practically
and then,
immortal.
Yeah. And then so when it happened, I was like, this is not right. Like something is wrong. I was like having this little moment inside my head where I'm like, no, he let me do that. He let me do that.
Laird felt the same thing when he beat me too. He's like, no, this can't be right.
No, this can't
and I was like, this can't be right.
Everybody's in denial.
Yeah.
Speaking of community and how you kind of found that in CrossFit as well, like what was your journey into the CrossFit, atmosphere in that CrossFit community?
Oh man. So let's see. I guess it was about 2012. We went to visit our friend in Austin, Texas. And he was like, I don't know. I know when we went down there and I was 8 months pregnant, I beat him at a 5K and I was like, dude, what's your deal? And I think it was before that. It might have been the same trip. He took me, he's like, you're going to love this, Krystal. Like, this is your thing. And I'm like, do I really want to do this? All the typical hesitations, especially for women back 15 years ago, trying CrossFit.
Right.
And I tried it and I loved it.
Yeah.
Maybe it was maybe Thad was around it and maybe it was before I was pregnant with Jolene. And then once I was pregnant with Jolene, I didn't really want to, I was always physically active, but I didn't really want to do CrossFit. I was worried about getting injured and stuff, which is kind of a fallacy, but that's how we were raised. So then as soon as Jolene was born and I got the okay to start being physically active again, she was born June 18th. And by Thad's birthday in August, I had done my on-ramp. Rob had been going to CrossFit for about a year, and I was fed up with it because he was exhausted when he wasn't at CrossFit, and he was there 2 hours, and I'm like, what is going on? I go to the gym for 30 minutes and I get it done, bro. Yeah. And you're there for 2 hours and then you're tired for a week. Come on. So he was like, all right, well, you got to do it. So then, he brought me to Ty and Supa, and Ty held my baby while he taught the class. And I have pictures that pop up. I'll have to.
Oh, that's amazing.
It was great. Yeah. It was, the rest is history.
Yeah. Well, I have a few questions off that, but one, since you were just mentioning it, the 2-hour workout, do you feel like there's a perfect window of time for a physical activity where you're exerting yourself or
Yeah, I think it's all about balance.
Yeah.
I think zone 2 is a little bit underrated. So I really love zone 2. And how I get that is actually either just walking on my walking desk treadmill while I'm working, which I'm probably not even in zone 2, but a lot of endurance athletes, they're zone 2 or less for 90% of their workouts. It's a lot of volume at really low intensity.
Yes.
And then the other thing I do twice a week is 90 minutes of Bikram yoga, which is definitely zone 2. What I love about it is you're not allowed to breathe through your mouth though. So if you get too exerted to the point where you have to breathe through your mouth, you're probably not in zone 2 anymore anyways. So I figure that's a little bit of zone 2. And then as far as intensity goes, I really think I'm trying to cut back on the CrossFit. I have been for a few years. Right. It's really fun, but I think it takes a toll on your body. So I would prefer, 3 maybe Metcon kind of intense workouts a week. And then, I really like to get in the weight training 2 to 3 times a week too. Yeah. So sometimes you can combine that. CrossFit a lot of times will have a strength and then a Metcon that's pretty quick. Sometimes that for boys, I think they can tolerate it a little bit better. For girls with our hormones and stuff like that, I think it can be a bit intense sometimes. So you really do have to let go of the competitive side and kind of listen to your body and be okay with not doing certain things certain times. But yeah, I don't know if that answers your question. I think it's all about balance. And I think jujitsu is really explosive. Yeah. So I think you have to take that into consideration. I think it's probably more like an interval training or a high intensity. So you're getting a lot of that, which is great, but you probably have to moderate that too. You don't want to be doing that every single day.
Well, it also depends on what classes you go to. Because if you go to 6 a.m., it's pretty chill. You got to warm up and your heart rate gets up, but then it's a lot of drilling, not a lot of live stuff. You got a Wednesday night, on the other hand, Chunks closes the garage door and tries to murder everybody with heat, and then Elias and Laird make us work ridiculously hard. So totally different experiences at different class times.
Yeah. And your core is active the whole time in jiu-jitsu. It's kind of like
should be.
Swimming. Yeah. You're using every muscle. It feels like you're gripping, you're using your legs. You're constantly hipping to each side.
And what's cool about it and what scares me about it is just like you have to move unpredictable ways in jiu-jitsu, which is great. But I think that's also where people who are less knowledgeable probably get injured.
Yeah.
Especially just with the different levels of people in the classes could be challenging, I'm sure.
Yeah. And I think like not every time is it your choice where you're moving, you know?
Yes, not at all.
Because like someone could be just technically better or more physical than you, and then you're gonna kind of have. That's why like body awareness and like positioning is such an important like factor in martial arts for us. So like, you know, doing a lot of drills that are gonna like build your awareness of your body, where you're safe, where you're not safe, where you're protected, and kind of just like especially for beginners, like just really push that into their. It's almost like muscle memory,
Instincts.
you know? Yeah,
It becomes instinct, and you just know where to move.
Yeah, we emphasize a lot like building a base more than anything. Just having people be able to stand the right way, you know, be able to move on their feet the right way, and that makes a huge difference. We do a lot of wrestling in here, which is just learning how to take people down. But when you do that, you're learning how to basically control yourself as you fall, control the other person as you fall. And it does limit a lot of injuries if you're drilling it. Yeah. Because people are learning their like how to base out. You know, they're keeping their feet planted. They're shifting side to side. They're probably strengthening their knees in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And to the point of injury, I'd say like most of the time someone's injured in jiu-jitsu, it's like it's probably their own fault.
Yep.
Like moving the wrong way out of a submission, or like just
or
just
not tapping when they should.
Yeah, exactly. Like a lot of the time you see injury and not all of the time, but a lot of the time it's like it's definitely just a knowledge discrepancy, I guess, where they're just making a mistake
or an ego. I think in CrossFit a lot of times it's ego.
Sure.
Like
yeah, absolutely.
Wanting to be better and so my other question on that would be, is there a certain amount of time you recommend people practice the foundational things before they start sparring? Or
I'd say, I mean, sparring is always at the end, you know, and for us, just to protect people, we'll do positional sparring. So there's a very specific goal,
right?
So people don't get injured. You know, if we were just starting them both on the feet, especially as beginners, like the odds of them getting injured go way up. But yeah, definitely a lot of positional sparring, and then we don't spar until the end because at that point everyone's warm.
Yes,
you know, you've had a chance to really like warm up and limber your body and prevent injury as best you can, I suppose.
Yeah,
but
I remember the day we were working on like a takedown, and the guy that I was working with kept like basically hip tossing me over and slamming me into the ground, and we hadn't covered break falls. I was very beginner. Like I was like maybe was like a couple weeks, a month into it. Maybe, and he put me on the ground so hard 3 times, knocked the wind out of me. I'm like, all right, I don't think you're doing it right. This really sucks. And then literally the next class, Laird's like, okay, we're going to learn break falls. And I'm like, that would have been useful yesterday. Oh my gosh.
You inspired the curriculum.
He's like, maybe we'll add that in.
I watched that and I was like, oh no.
We gotta learn this.
I mean, to the point, or just like to go back to like the intensity of workouts, because I almost think back to some of my training camps, like for most of my professional fights, and it's like always every day was something intense. Like almost twice a day, it would be like intense in the morning, intense in the evening, done, right? And I wonder how much like mixed martial arts athletes could benefit if they like, because I think a lot of it is a mentality. Like for me, I'll just be like, if I'm not pushing myself to exhaustion in each workout, like I'm not doing enough to win this, or I'm not doing enough to like put myself in the position to succeed. So I don't know, maybe like fighters in general, because I think a lot of fighters have that attitude. Yeah. They could benefit from more like, all right, I had my intense workout, and maybe it doesn't even need to be like 1 a day. Maybe it could be 2, 3 a week, you know, and then a lot of the supplement is with like the zone 2, like you were saying.
More isn't always better, right? More can just be more. I think Ty would be a good resource for that, because he's frequently, you know, reinforcing that.
Yeah.
I think the other thing would be like an actual UFC coach, maybe, that has, somebody you would trust, that has, good people under their belt. Maybe ask them about a program like that, because I think there would be value, but it has to come from somebody you really trust, that, knows their stuff about specifically your sport.
Yeah.
Do you have a coach?
Well, I have had a lot of different coaches, but it seems like that's kind of common throughout the industry, at least from like the coaches that I've been a part of. And one of the reasons I was bringing up like time, because when I was training in the Bay Area at this place called AK, which is a very like reputable MMA academy, they've had a lot of UFC world champions over the years. And, their professional practice was an hour and a half to 2 hours every day. And then you would typically hit a night practice as well. But it was like this long, drawn out, like intense practice. But I eventually moved to Dallas, and I was training at this place, Fortis. And his philosophy was like, well, you don't have to train long to work hard. Like,
Yeah.
And he would just do a 45-minute, like intense, practice where you would just feel exhausted afterwards, but you did it in less than half the time,
Yeah.
And I don't know, like they were both intense. So I don't know if either one of them were like benefiting me more, but I'd say a lot of the coaches in MMA, and I'm sure there's some out there, but a lot of the coaches are more just like, we're making this hard. Like the more you do, the better. Just in my experience, I've never like come across a coach that's like, hey, today we're just going to focus on like drilling for an hour, and our heart rate's only going to get up above a certain amount,
Yeah, that's just really taxing on your system.
Yeah.
And I think especially as we get older, I think we can handle it more, probably the younger we are. And also I think just seeing my kids starting to do CrossFit and stuff pretty young, I think we honor our limitations when we're a little bit younger too. Then we start to get good, or and then we're like, oh, we can do that, we're gonna push. And in my experience working with professional athletes, their problem isn't pushing, their problem is knowing when not to push or how to stop. So it's when you get really tired and you make a mistake or you get sloppy that injuries happen. So yeah, I mean, I think there would be a lot of value in balancing that out quite a bit. I don't think you need intensity all the time. You need to be able to do it once in a while, because you're going to have to in a fight. But I don't think more is better.
Well, there's a couple of aspects. So there's the physical adaptation that you're trying to create. Right? You're trying to also groove motor patterns. And when you look at fight tapes of another fighter, you're like, okay, I need to train to combat this guy's strengths, right? Like I've got to like train that hard and like really get that in my brain so that I know that I can handle that when I get in the cage with Marab, so he doesn't just keep taking me down and mauling me. But there's also the mental side of like, you're going to war, right?
Yeah.
Like you need to be able to handle an incredibly high level of intensity with no end in sight. Like that vibe, you have to know that you have it in you.
Yeah, you have to be able to emulate that exhaustion.
Yeah, so fight camp, it makes sense. To me, it makes sense to train at an incredibly high intensity, high volume for fight camp. But in between fight camps, I think there's an in-between that like Patty Pimblett has not hit. Like he goes from, training super hard and turning into a warrior into like a fat guy.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Krystal, I have a question in regards to the diet aspect of being in those zones for like most of your training. If you're someone, like myself or Laird, and we're doing those intense training sessions, like would that be considered zone 3 or zone 4, or what is?
So there's a couple different zoning systems.
Yeah.
The one I like to use is just like 1 to 5, 1 to 4, 1 to 5, something like that. And I would say probably you can't stay in zone 4 or 5 for very long.
Yeah.
So I think your intensity, it would be based on your heart rate if you had a whoop or something to measure. But I'm guessing you're up in 4, if not 5 for some of those.
I mean, I'm not a high level competitor at all, but like if I get an open mat, and I wear my whoop and it tells me what zones I'm in for different, like how much time I spend in each zone. And I don't spend a ton of time in zone 4 or 5, but you can see my heart rate spike every roll. There's every hill, and then like in between rolls, you can see it drop. And I probably spend about, for an hour of open mat, maybe 10 minutes in zone 4, maybe 5 minutes in zone 5.
That's high intensity.
That's that's pretty high intensity.
And that's a lot of it, actually.
Yeah.
If you were like to do a Tabata or a HIIT workout or something, you wouldn't expect to get more than 10 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know, ever in zone 5, zone 4 even.
Yeah. I can imagine. I mean, some training sessions you'll be rolling like it feels like a 5-minute sprint is what it feels like, and then you're doing that for 2 hours.
Yeah,
you're like,
that's why you need
5
people like
sprint,
me.
and then there's like a 1 to 2 minute rest, and then another 5-minute sprint.
Rest rounds. They call me rest round Ty.
Yeah.
That's what they call me. Yeah.
But what do you think about that? Like, if you're constantly like going from a 5-minute sprint, and then maybe you do take like multiple rest rounds, and then you're back in there, so it's like your heart rate is like fluctuating up and down quite a bit through a longer period of time. Like, what do you think that? Is that beneficial? Is that
absolutely
okay?
I think it's really good for you.
Yeah.
I think it's just how I think it would come down to how much and how often are you doing it. You know, at least a couple of those types of sessions. I think we try to emulate that a bit in CrossFit, at least a couple
Fight gone
times
bad.
a week.
Yeah.
So I think it is really good for you. Now I would say, how are you remineralizing, feeding your body? Because the things in our dietary system are not balanced. And, one of the things we're going to do on you next time I see you is actually a hair tissue mineral analysis test. I just did a course on that. So that really helps because even our genetics, what I'm finding is our genetics are really important for telling us what could be, or if we metabolize something fast or something like that. And that's great. But what I'm finding is environmental factors really play in a lot more even than some of the genetic things. So you might not genetically need extra magnesium or extra potassium, but if you're burning through it, then we have to figure that out, and we have to be able to replace it properly, because everything, your cells work based on minerals. Like minerals are the fuel for your cells. Yeah. And that's what the allopathic medicine is missing. They don't know anything about minerals. Yeah. And so that's like kind of the next phase of what I've been working on and studying is figuring out how all these minerals communicate and balance each other, because even something as simple as taking zinc is going to stop you from absorbing copper or being able to use copper, which copper is responsible for hundreds of different processes in the body. Right. So it's just a matter of, and again, as we age, I think, so we get a download in the last trimester of pregnancy. Our moms give us 10% of her minerals. And, but our mom's mineral content from their diets is less than their mom's, because we live in America. Right. And so every generation is getting less and less of download. Now you're actually the second baby, right?
Yes.
So you got 9% of what she had left. She gave 10% to Elias, and then you get 9% of what she has left.
Elias is hoarding minerals.
Yes. So
so why is it that I'm so much stronger than him? I'm kidding.
I think that's.
Are you talking about body odor or physical strength?
The body odor for sure. No,
that definitely could be genetics, and I would love to talk to your mom sometime and talk about her pregnancy, her experience with pregnancies. Sometimes the first pregnancy is actually more stressful, so she doesn't have as much minerals because she's burning through them. Because was it unexpected? Were you moving? Are you younger? Blah, 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 blah. Right. Sometimes the second pregnancy is more stressful because you're taking care of a baby and you're tired and you're working and you're still doing all these things. Right. So, or you got sick or this or that. So it would be cool to talk to her about her experience. Cause that definitely influences, that too.
Yeah.
I want to just close the loop on this question. So when we're in that zone 3, zone 4, even zone 5, like, are we mostly burning glucose, burning sugar, like carbohydrates? Is that what we ultimately need to refuel on? Because I'm constantly kind of wondering, because some days I just feel incredible. Some days I feel, not so good. And my diet doesn't change ridiculously, but it would be nice to be able to systematize it.
I would say it depends on what you fueled with. is
Yeah.
going to be what you're burning, right? So people can go keto, and what your goal is going to be is to be adaptive. So you can burn on whatever fuel you have. That's the most important thing.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of people who were really hardcore keto athletes. Now they're saying, oh, I'm keto during the day and I'm refueling with fruits and carbs at night, you know? So it's going to depend on how do you feel? Like,
Yeah.
you know,
Yes.
and but it's also difficult because it can be like a baby. Oh, the baby slept really good last night, so I'm going to feed her the same thing, put her in the same clothes, and then this night she doesn't sleep at all.
Yeah.
Right. So, and you have to remember allostatic stress, like even things that are outside of work or the gym, can definitely contribute. So I think it's a balance. I don't think there's, you know, if you're trying to eat real foods and nothing, I would say if you can avoid a box or a window, you know, or the frozen foods, anything like that, I think you'll be better off.
Yeah.
I think protein's important, but I think that organ meat is very underutilized and also very, very important. And I think fat is very important in a diet. And the goal is to be able to really I think fat is one of the more efficient fuels. So I think being able to use that, but with the lean body mass that you guys have, you have to eat a lot of fat.
Yeah.
So,
I was actually
Good.
wondering about that because, like, do you think a big reason that a lot of people, like, you know, I guess just like throw away, like, oh, you shouldn't be eating a tons of like fat, like a high fat content. Do you think like that's mainly if they're seeing health issues related to that, it's because people aren't active through that? Like, how active do you have to be if you're going to be like intaking that amount of fats?
and I think yes, and I think it's the quality or where you're
Right,
getting the
exactly,
fat from.
yes.
You know, I think honestly, fat should be from animal tissues. Fat, FAT, from
Yes.
animal tissues.
Yeah.
So I think, so I think that is where you're going to get retinol, which is vitamin A, which is so important in the body.
Yeah.
It controls your thyroid function. It controls your ability to move protein in and out of the body. It'll heal leaky gut, all these types of things. And so what happened is in the 50s, after Eisenhower's first heart attack, he was the president at the time, and the doctor at the time was like, let's get rid of cholesterol, let's get rid of fat. So ever since then, we've been on this low fat or vilified fat. And what comes with fat is retinol, vitamin A. And so vitamin A is way more important than and now we're all, supplementing with vitamin D, which please don't do that, because vitamin A and vitamin D are the antithesis for one another. And so vitamin A causes utilization of minerals and flourishing and growth, whereas vitamin D stops that. So I think we just all have it we've been taught wrong is what I'm learning. And so I'm just trying to help reverse that information and really get people, because, and then if you're getting calcifications, like if people are worried about heart attack and stroke, that type of thing with too much fat, it's actually because they don't have enough magnesium. So, that goes back to another mineral imbalance that we don't get a lot of in our diet. So I think and I think it's stepping back and look at everything. What caused that? Always asking why that happened instead of just, oh, you have calcification, let's try to break it up.
Yeah.
That's a shoot from the hip approach and it doesn't work. And so I think always saying, why did that happen? What's the physiology? What's happening on a cellular level? And how do we actually correct that is the more important way to address it.
Would you say that a lot of people that are on high fat diets, it may be more correlation, less causation, where yes, they are eating high fat, but they're also eating like a really high processed sugar diet. And so,
absolutely,
you go to McDonald's, you're getting a lot of fat, but you're also getting an enormous amount of sugar in most of the things, the ketchup, the soda, all that stuff.
Yeah,
low
absolutely.
quality fats, I guess.
Yeah, and low quality. Yeah, absolutely. And even the carbs are low quality, right? So a potato isn't the same as getting an organic potato from your farmer's market. They're mass producing junk food, literally. So absolutely. And blood sugar is very, very important. And if you're doing all the right things and your blood sugar's high, then there's a mineral imbalance at the end of the day. So it really is looking back to the very cellular level and finding the absolute things. And it can be different for everybody, what they need and what they're using and based on what they're eating. But actually there's a lot of like standard truths that we just aren't taught.
Well, and one of the products you have that you sell basically replaces the lack of minerals in our drinking water, because we used to, humans used to always drink out of, lakes and rivers and streams, and there were a lot of minerals in there. And now we're getting water from the pipes, and we're not
reverse
necessarily getting
osmosis, removing all the minerals, and then we expect our bodies to function normally when we're basically sterilizing our water.
Yeah.
And the chemicals, God forbid there's chlorine in your water.
Yeah.
And that throws everything off too.
That's scary. That's incredible information, by the way. I don't want to just skip past that. That's so insightful, so informative.
Yeah.
Yeah. How important is it to you, like when we're talking about the fat and getting really good healthy fats, how important is food combining to you? And, of course we don't want to have the fats with, processed sugars or whatnot, but
it's kind of funny. I still really liked, I don't measure like calories or macros or anything like that. My guess is that I get over 50% of my diet from fat, probably. Yeah. I just feel better. I always have done well with fat. And I do think it's important to combine them because they work together. So, I'm not just going to just eat a cube of butter. Well, I will eat just a cube of butter.
I will do the same. Yeah.
It's delicious.
Yeah, I've seen you eat dates and butter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My fiance and I consume copious amounts of butter.
That's great. I love it. And but then you have to take it a step further. I'm really trying to figure out if anybody has a raw milk source here in Nevada. I know it's illegal, but whatever.
Yeah.
Stupid.
If you just go up to Truckee.
Just
over to Truckee, you can stock up on it.
Okay.
Tina was telling me that JFK or RFK, sorry, is trying to legalize raw milk. And,
that's all. That's all a big ag baloney thing.
Yeah.
They're just.
Is the homogenization or is it the pasteurization that's worse?
I don't know.
Because the homogenization breaks apart all the proteins, right? It just
Mhm.
destroys everything, and then the pasteurization kills any it's just everything's denaturing protein. It's
all I know is when we were on vacation, we went to Utah, stocked up. Colorado had raw milk the whole time. Not from Colorado; it's illegal there too. And then stocked back up. Not one complaint of a stomach ache. Everybody, it tastes delicious. It's just
so
feel
good.
And the thing is if you get milk that's turned, it's turned. It's not. It's very obvious. You're like, I probably shouldn't drink this because I'm gagging on it right now.
Yeah.
The goat milk was a little strong. We did stop at a goat farm, and I was like, this always smells bad.
Yeah,
that's
true.
I love
But it doesn't.
goat milk.
But it doesn't smell like it's turned. It just smells strong.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of goat milk.
When we're shopping for milk around here, I feel like the lesser of all the evils in terms of pasteurization. Strauss is minimally processed dairy, and I actually had a conversation with one of the reps there, and he was just saying we try to process it as little as we can.
Yeah. To make it legal.
Yeah, to make it legal. And then Kelowna boasts low temp pasteurization. They're trying to make it as low as possible to make it the legal limit.
That's good to know.
So that's cool. But yeah, a lot of fat in our diets for sure. I know both of us. There was a time when we were in San Jose, and we've always been trying to find, of course, what is the best diet for us? What are we going to thrive off of? And we've gone, too far in the vegan area, and then we went fully animal based. But
Liver King style.
Yeah. One morning we woke
just
up and I was
raw
showing
liver,
Laird Paul Saladino. I was like, we just have to do this. We have to do this.
Well, Elias woke up when we were all living together at the time, and he woke up just screaming through the house Gail, it's bullshit. It's bullshit. All of it's bullshit, dude. Oh, you gotta watch this. Everything's bullshit.
How did you feel? What's the difference in how you felt with each of the things you've tried?
Well, the crazy thing is, so at the time when we discovered a more animal-based diet is the time when we were training, that was the most intense training that we were doing, in our lives leading up to that. and I never felt better. I felt
Wow.
incredible.
What's
I mean,
crazy is a lot of
yeah.
people, when they switch, don't feel good for a while. So that's really cool.
Yeah, I felt like I had so much energy. I felt stronger. I mean, in all of my training
And-
sessions, I felt like I could just
Yeah.
push through till the end with no problem.
Mm-hmm.
We were doing it to like a T. I mean, we were doing organic fruits, raw dairy, and grass-fed
Nice.
meats, you know, and yeah, we were just like
So you weren't full
religiously
carnivore.
doing it.
No,
Well,
no,
we were
having
animal
fruit.
based. We were
We were having
completely
fruit.
animal based.
Good.
We never did the carnivore.
Okay.
But we did, you know, we had the raw liver. We, you know, even though I hated that. I hated
Where
trying
did
to
you
put
guys
that.
get raw liver from?
Well, we were in California at the
Oh,
time, and
yeah.
we could get like
Raw milk was
organic
legal.
grass-fed
Yeah.
raw liver.
Yeah.
You can get the raw dairy there. You know, we had butter, milk, all of
Yeah.
it, and yeah, it was. I felt the exact same way. I felt so good during that time, and we were also just like taking in a lot of sun and like
Yeah.
doing a lot of outdoor activity, and I think that was a big help.
Yeah.
You know,
It's still like how I feel most optimal is getting mostly, grass-fed
Animal-based,
animal
yeah.
fats and really good pasture-raised eggs and
Yep.
a lot of quality dairy for sure. We have a
Absolutely.
lot of quality dairy, but yeah, I think trying to take the best aspects from everything we've learned thus far. I mean, I still enjoy like a really good seasonal salad now.
Mhm.
So
Absolutely.
yeah.
I think it's all about balance. I don't subscribe to not eating fruits and veggies ever.
yeah.
Fruits, of course, are coming back into vogue, which is great.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't need to eat a whole head of kale, but
Yeah.
I do. I mean, I try to have veggies at every meal,
Mm.
Yeah.
and prepare them properly in the right
Mhm.
things. I think there's value in them. If you look at like what our great grandmothers ate, they were eating that stuff. They weren't eating
Yeah.
copious amounts of it.
Yeah.
Like some people shove tons of food down their gullet. It's like that's not necessary either.
Yeah.
But I think getting most of your calories from fat and protein, and I'm getting a little bit more picky with my protein too. I don't eat that much beef or chicken anymore. I'm a lot more lamb, a
Mhm.
lot more venison,
Right.
trying to get things that elk, anything that's kind of like off the beaten path.
Yeah.
Because even like the chicken just tastes terrible to me nowadays.
Yeah.
You cook it and it doesn't
Right.
smell right. It's just kind
Yeah.
of like, so
Mass produced.
It feels hard to
Yeah.
find like a quality source of turkey or chicken.
yeah, it's crazy.
I find that a lot of people, this is what I see, like these trends in diets are that they start, the genesis of them for a lot of people in their spheres of influence is that they have a crappy diet, like they're eating terribly, and then they change their diet and they do like keto, or they do it like they couldn't do worse than what they're currently doing.
Right.
So then when they change it, they feel great
Yeah.
because all at once they're eating better than they were. And then they swear by that diet.
Yep.
They're like, this is the best diet ever. But in the reality, long-term studies show that most of those diets, those extreme diets, are not going to be very healthy
Not
long-term.
sustainable either.
Whereas like the Mediterranean diet is
Yeah.
a very sustainable long-term diet where people have, we have many, many decades of data on that where like, this is a pretty healthy way to eat.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was actually sorry.
Go ahead.
If you had some, I was just gonna say because he brought up the Mediterranean thing because I was curious if when you're like looking at just studying sources of longevity and health, do you look into like other cultures and like
Yeah, and what I tell my patients too is I ask them, where are you from? Where is your
Right.
genealogy from?
Right.
And try to find the oldest cookbook that you can.
Yeah.
Like people will do the Fannie Mae Farmer cookbook.
right?
And even some of these, even the Julia Child's cookbook, they've recently changed and taken all the butter out and made it all, she would roll over in her grave.
God.
But like getting a really old cookbook and seeing what's in there, because they're going to have some weird stuff in there
Right.
that
Yeah.
your grandparents were eating and it's
Yeah.
valuable, So I think part of the problem is with, we all know glyphosate is everywhere, even the organic, apparently they can spray the fields before they plant.
Yeah.
So some of the organic farmers are doing that.
Yeah.
And then, freaking Dave Asprey on his own farm in Montana tests positive for glyphosate. So
Yeah.
Glyphosate is a pesticide.
that's a
right? Yeah.
pesticide. And how it works is it breaks down copper in the pests. Well, guess what? It's breaking down your copper in your body as well.
Yeah.
So, yes, foods and copper is at the very, very center of whole food vitamin C. So it's really important to get that, but also supplementing sometimes with copper and with some of these things, liver, a lot of these things that have it might not even have as much as they once did. And that's where I'm seeing a lot of energy, fatigue, things like that, is when those minerals aren't in the right balance in the body. And a lot of times it's copper.
Hey, I got to ask you real quick, because you said vitamin C, and I know you sell whole C. What's the difference between the whole C that you sell and like ascorbic acid?
So if you were going to drive a car, would you want to walk out and have the shell of a car there, or would you want to have a fully functioning car there?
Oh, that's tough.
Yeah.
Is it like a really cool shell?
Yeah. How cool is the shell?
So actually, the guy that got the Nobel Prize for discovering ascorbic acid didn't. He actually was studying whole food vitamin C from peppers. And there was an article that came out that said ascorbic acid does not cure scurvy at all. Ascorbic acid is part of vitamin C. Easy to manufacture, very cheap to make, of course. And so they can make a lot of money on it. But whole food vitamin C is like a fully functioning car. It has different layers. There's a copper in the middle. Totally different thing. The ascorbic acid actually breaks down ceruloplasmin, which is what carries copper in the body, the protein. And so,
So we're actually like going in the wrong direction
Right.
when we're taking pure ascorbic acid.
Right. And it's amazing. Even things like, I don't know if you're still on it. At some point you were on a certain supplement called tyrosine, which supports the thyroid. It has ascorbic acid. So I'm trying to get people off of that as we can we can use selenium, which is in there. We can use iodine, which is in there. But getting rid of that, I had a electrolyte powder that I loved, that I looked on it. It's like ascorbic. I was eating like 5,000 times the daily recommended amount of vitamin C through ascorbic acid and not even knowing it.
Well, the thing is like everybody gets on these bandwagons. They're like, ascorbic acid's great. Put it in everything.
And vitamin D too. It's in our milk. It's in. I went to get a digestive food enzyme because I ran out. I carry some at the office. I was out. I was like, oh, I need my food enzyme. I went and got the Bio Optimizers, which is supposed to be the best thing. I look at it and I'm like, oh my gosh, at the very bottom, it's vitamin D. You don't need vitamin D to digest food.
It's crazy.
So there's things that if you don't know what to look for, it's in everything, and it's
and that's
really
why going back to Whole
frustrating.
Foods, you don't get mystery ingredients in there, right?
Yeah,
Like when you eat
maybe.
well, yeah, but I mean,
Yeah.
when you eat a slab of organic, lamb,
Yep.
you pretty much know what's in there.
Yeah.
Yes, you're going to get some of the stuff that they're absorbing through the environment, but
What are
you
they
can't
eating,
stop
right?
that.
That's why you need the pasture raised eggs, because otherwise they're feeding them things that were from grains, which chickens aren't supposed to eat grains. They're supposed to eat worms and grass. So
And when they do that, the chickens, their eggs have a really high level of omega-6, correct?
Right.
Whereas if they're giving them like flaxseed or they're just free range, then they're going to be way higher in omega-3, which
Exactly.
omega-6 is a very, it's an inflammatory compound, whereas omega-3, on the other hand, is anti-inflammatory, good for the
Exactly.
heart, circulation, all that. So.
And one more thing I'd like to add, just while we're talking about diet and all of these things, is you guys are doing a lot of things right. However, back in the day when you were sparring, there would have been a lot more blood loss. And I haven't heard anything about blood loss in you guys yet.
Right.
So that is what I would like to see one way or another. Because one of the reasons women live longer than men is because they have actually a monthly menstrual cycle and they lose blood.
Yeah.
So if you guys could add swords to your regimen, no, I'm kidding. But donating blood is not only good for you, but only 5% of the population donates, but it's been proven time and time again, the 5% that donate always live longer because iron gets stored in your body. And so we only need to ingest like 1 milligram of iron a day. Our body's supposed to recycle the rest, and it causes oxidative stress. So donating blood every 3 months, and you can schedule it like on your down week or, with women who are still menstruating, if they have light cycles, I'll have them schedule it, when they're supposed to be having a cycle or something like that. But getting rid of some of that iron will actually really help
Wow.
You're ingesting a lot, and that's great. I don't have a problem with it from meat or natural sources.
Yeah.
But
But it accumulates.
it accumulates, and that's why women don't have heart attacks as early. But once they're through menopause, it's one of the reasons that they start having all the same problems as men, and so that's really important.
Back when men were real warriors, they lost blood.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
right. So you guys are just posers.
Yeah, for real. Until we get the swords.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I'm hoping you order. I'll come watch.
So how often would be,
I
an appropriate
recommend
amount
every
of-
3 months.
every 3 months?
Yep.
Okay.
And just whole red blood. They'll ask you for plasma. They'll ask you for platelets. They'll ask you for double red. Nope. I am going to give my 1 unit of blood every 3 months, and they'll be happy with that.
And by the way, so
Very cool. That's
logistically,
great
let me preempt. If anybody goes and looks at like the Vitalent website in Reno,
Yeah.
that's the blood donation center that's
Super
most
easy.
premier. They have, when you schedule, they'll say like, this is a time you can give plasma, or this is a time you can do a double red. But I talked to the guy when I went in like last week and gave blood. I was like, well, can I give just a single red whole blood cell draw at any given time? He's like, yeah, you can always give that. You can just walk in and give it at any time.
Okay.
Because the only reason they say that you can only give plasma at this time, or it kind of implies that you can only give plasma at that time. The reason is it takes longer to give plasma. It takes longer to do a double red blood cell draw, but a single blood draw is super easy. It's the
5
fastest
minutes.
thing.
Yeah. It's
Yeah,
so fast.
5-10 minutes at most. You're in and out. Bam.
And
Yeah.
that's what you had me do, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was super
And so we're
fast.
essentially trying to clear out like old iron.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's really great. So it's not only it's going to help you, it's going to help somebody else. But what it does is when you lose that much blood, it actually increases, you get a kind of a shock protein, and it increases erythropoietin, which, is a great doping thing. And it causes you so that stimulates you to pull iron that's been stored in your tissues and your liver out to make red blood cells. When you give 1 unit of blood, you get rid of about 250 milligrams of, so if you're
Accumulated
accumulating, so if you're accumulating 2 milligrams a day, every 3 months is about how often you want to do it. I'm doing a little experiment on myself, because, I did take iron supplements for a while because I was told I was anemic. And so I thought iron would fix that. Well, I quit that. I started taking copper. I'm no longer anemic. Actually, I can donate blood like every week now.
Wow.
But because I did that, and just because I'm kind of crazy, I'm going to do every other month for a little while. I figure I've built up about 10 years worth of iron.
Yeah.
Got a lot to
But
give.
you get rid of it when you're sweating. You get rid of a little bit. It's not like the end of the world, but I just kind of want to see how I feel if I do it every other month. And
So if you were doing it once every 3 months, how many units would you want to give up?
one unit every 3 months.
Just
one
one
unit.
pint.
Yep.
Okay.
1 pint of blood, 500 milliliters.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah. And so
It's amazing
I've
advice.
seen, and this is it's really interesting too. And I think a lot of it is the non-functional copper or not enough copper in our diet, so that people can't make enough red blood cells. The other thing I've seen a lot is people feel really good on the paleo diet for a while because they're getting that inflammation from high blood sugar. And blood sugar is really, really a big issue, and it will help you feel better. But then they're eating a lot more iron and they aren't getting rid of it at all. So I feel like after 6 months or a year of doing paleo, a lot of times people are like, oh, I feel like a robot resting. I'm like, oh, because you are. Because that iron, literally, if you had iron on your bumper, it would turn into rust. It's doing the exact same thing in your bodies. It's
Just oxidizes.
It's literally, I want to say there was a scientist from Stanford, and it's called the oxidative stress theory of aging. And I believe in it 100%. I mean, the more I learn, the more it feels like it really resonates. And
So there's no
it
way
makes
to
a lot of
lose
sense.
here. If you donate every 3 months, you're going to be healthier and you're potentially giving life-saving
Yeah. And I would say if
supply to
you
somebody
don't
else.
feel good afterwards, and I eat, so what I do is I eat breakfast, I work out, then I eat lunch, and then I donate, and I make sure I've had, plenty of water and electrolytes. and I feel fine. It feels like nothing happened when
Yeah.
when I donate blood. If you feel bad afterwards, you don't have the minerals or the copper, or something is missing. You're not hydrated. Something is wrong. So you need to come see me and figure it out.
Yeah.
And the other thing I did is I did supplements, and I made sure I had everything on board for several months before I actually donated the first time. And then you got to set yourself up for success. It's a little easier for boys than girls, I would say, for the most part. But if your copper's really low or, anything like that, then you can feel kind of run down for a while after.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I wanted to also ask you about caffeine consumption and how that plays a role in your mineralizing or the minerals that you have in your body, and if it depletes them and ultimately
a little bit. Certainly depletes magnesium, which is super duper important and water soluble and goes away with stress. And it's actually, people think of magnesium as calming, which indeed it is, but it's this weird thing. It's almost like calming, but you get more done. You're more focused. You have more energy when you have the right magnesium on board. And so I do worry about a lot of caffeine depleting, you're going to pee out minerals and things like that. And then the timing of caffeine is really important too. So you want to make sure you get an hour, wake up, you still have adenosine in your system. So the way caffeine works is that it blocks adenosine from being reuptaked, which adenosine is our sleep hormone that builds through the day. If when you wake up, there's still some in your system, so you need to give it an hour to kind of metabolize out. And then when your caffeine wears off at 3:00 in the afternoon, you feel pretty normal. Whereas if you drink caffeine right away and you already have some adenosine, and then you're building up on top of that, when it wears off at 2 or 3 o'clock, and you're like, oh my gosh, I need another
the adenosine kicks in.
espresso.
Yeah, it's just suppressed it up until the time.
Right,
Okay.
it's still building, and if you weren't able to get rid of that stuff that was left over, then that's a problem. And I think it's just about moderation. I love my cup of coffee in the morning, and I definitely, I eat breakfast and then have my one and I actually do half calf. It's about probably 2 actual.
Start at -1.
Yeah.
Ty and I
just
always
about to
say the
make fun
first
of you
cup
guys.
doesn't count.
Yeah, right.
So
right.
basically, I've been doing it right this whole time while you guys have been making fun of me.
No,
Yeah.
because you've been drinking mostly milk.
Oh, that's great. Yeah,
Raw
even
milk.
better. Yeah, there you go.
And maple syrup.
And the award goes
Buttersworth.
to.
Damn it.
Well, and this is great advice, because then we've said basically what you need to do is go to the 6 a.m. jiu-jitsu class. You'll definitely have been up for an hour, and then hang out with us and have coffee. It's perfect. It's perfect.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Okay.
Make sure that's organic too. Gosh. And
Your
then
coffee.
Mhm.
What's because I'm hearing a lot about coffee is the most mold prone crop in so what are people doing about this, and what effect does it have if you're consuming coffee that's
moldy.
yeah
Well, I think it depends on your body. I mean, if your body is fully functional and mineralized and stuff like that, you're just going to get rid of it.
okay
People that are really sensitive to mold usually have congested livers, and they don't have the right minerals on board and things like that. But I definitely do spend the extra few bucks to get a clean coffee for sure that's organic, and it tastes better. It's not as acidic. It's, you can taste the difference. I love right now, I think it's called Life Boost, and it's like decaf, but it has all the mushrooms in it. Tastes just like coffee. And I'll do, half that and half regular coffee or whatever.
Yeah.
But as the better and better you feel, and the better your system is, the less you need it.
Yeah.
You'll like it still, but you won't need it, and you won't really want to overdo it anymore.
It's nice if you just have that ritual
Yeah.
as part of your routine. It feels good. And as long as it's not super detrimental to your health, I mean, that's the problem.
Well, there's a lot of people in a lot of studies that say it's very healthy for you. Definitely lower risk of bladder cancer.
And lowers uric acid.
Yep. So, I mean, there's benefits. I think it's, again, moderation.
okay
Yeah, and I like what you said about if your body is mineralized in the way it needs to be, then the coffee's you're probably going to get more of the benefits from the coffee rather than all of the negatives.
Which, I think when people are waking up and I certainly was a couple years back. You like, can you just put it in an IV to wake me up?
Yeah.
That's a sign something is wrong.
Yeah.
When you're drinking, a pitcher of coffee and still feel like crap.
Mm-hmm.
But a cup or two is fine.
No doubt.
It's also not a great sign financially if you're spending $10 every day of your life at Starbucks.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
No,
That's $300 a month.
Oh yeah,
crazy.
for sure.
Some people are spending more than that. That's a significant amount of money.
That's insane.
Yeah.
I have
Yeah,
a final question. Just like if we're talking like just for the average viewer who maybe isn't like, I don't know, taking that much research into account when like doing things for their health outside of nutrition, like what is the most like, what are some things people are doing or maybe not doing that could like benefit them right away, in today's day and age,
Ooh, I know what you're going to say.
Oh, what am I? Great, because I don't.
Stop eating 2 to 3 hours before
You're
you go to
absolutely
bed.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
I think that is the biggest bang for your buck. So 2 to 3 hours before bedtime, no food, no calories. If you can, go for a little walk. Once you feel tired, your body isn't able to produce or respond to insulin in a normal manner. You're inherently more insulin resistant in the evenings. So having, making sure you have 2 to 3 hours before bedtime, make sure you have time for your blood sugar to come down to a normal level.
And
Then
what should that be when you're sleeping? What are we targeting?
Well, I
roughly?
guess I would say anything less than 100 is technically normal. I kind of cringe when it's above 90. Honestly, personally, my blood sugar tends to be between 70 and 80 when I'm fasting, and I'm comfortable with that. That being said, if you're doing all the right things and your blood sugar isn't coming down, then it's probably something going on cellular that we need to work on. It could be iron disrupting the cell, causing oxidative stress. It could be not enough magnesium.
Yeah.
But absolutely, the one habit that I've seen people go from type 2 diabetic to no sign of diabetes simply by stopping eating, 3 hours before bedtime.
Yeah, that's huge.
And is there a window after you wake up that you want to wait, or?
No, not really. As soon as the sun is up, and for women especially, within an hour of waking up, I tell them you want to be ingesting food. It's going to buffer our cortisol. And cortisol, that spike in cortisol can really wreak havoc on hormones. Men can get away with a lot more, actually. If you don't feel like eating breakfast or you don't like it, it's probably okay for you. They tend to, if you think historically, you guys had to go out and catch the food, whereas we had to take care of ourselves and our babies. So we kind of had to like have nourishment right away. And cortisol is pretty hard on us.
What's a good wake up food? So like what would be like the just all-star breakfast? And I'm not talking Denny's.
Yeah.
Eggs.
Eggs. I always eat
Free range eggs.
Free range, 2 or 3 eggs. I usually, this morning I cut up some kale, had a little bit of sausage with that. And then I usually take my vitamins and have.
But was the kale bullshit?
It was very bullshit. And so I would say, let's say like, I would go to the farmer's market every Saturday, guys. You guys got to go to Tamarack Farmer's Market, get all this stuff. Berries and fruit with I just put a little dollop of like Greek yogurt because I love it, and then have my coffee afterwards.
Is the Greek yogurt sweetened, not sweetened?
Unfortunately, I get the one from Trader
But I mean,
Joe's. Yeah.
so they say like eating kimchi,
They have the honey one at Trader Joe's.
yogurt,
That's really
that sort of
awesome.
thing is good for probiotics. Even if it has a little bit of sugar in it, you're still getting the probiotic benefit, right?
Right. Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. And then the thing is, if you are sensitive to dairy, which we could see in your genetics, like casein, things like that, again, the A2 is better. It doesn't have casein, so that's an option. But yeah.
Sorry, I said I had one last question.
You're a liar.
When you,
We don't trust you anymore.
when you brought up like the primal roles of like men and women, like how much do you feel like that has a factor in like kind of how we should like I guess go through like routine throughout our day? Like, because I don't know, I've always thought that does have like a big factor in our lives, like what primally we did like way back in the day, and how it affects like what we should do now.
Yeah, absolutely. We've been around for how many years? And then it's just been the last 50 to 100 that we've really taken this inside, not going outside, women working,
Yeah.
which I work, so I totally understand that. But I also think that it's very unfortunate now we're set up where you need two incomes to survive,
Right,
whereas before you could definitely easily survive on one income, and rent was 20% of your, up to 20% versus the 50+% it is now. So I think things have gotten really bad in the last 80 years. Yeah. I mean, I love working, and that's part of who I am and part of what I want to do, but I don't think it should be necessary. And I think if we could, I think people would be happier if they were back to kind of ancestral roles.
Right.
It's not an easy life, and I don't think people lived longer because it was hard. But with the information we have and what we know now, I think if you can get back to it, for sure. Getting light first thing in the morning, earthing, touching the earth, working, making your food, even just as simple as cooking your dessert versus buying your dessert is going to make it a totally different experience.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
And
Do
for
you-
Elias, perineal sunning would be a big thing.
Yeah. Well, I do that every day.
yeah, absolutely. Doesn't everybody?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of perineal things, are we saying that right? Yeah. I actually had a question when we were talking about donating blood. There's also like, what is it called when you clean out your butthole?
Oh,
An
colonics.
enema?
Colonics.
An enema is one, but the
Yeah.
colonics, yes.
Yeah, don't do that.
Oh, that's what
Okay.
it's called?
Yeah. You don't, no way, man. You don't want to strip out all that good bacteria. If there's an imbalance, then you need to fix it with like diet, lifestyle, things like that. I think it's very scary. I've actually had patients come to me after having those with some pretty severe issues. I had one lady who had to be on antibiotics for like a year afterwards. You can,
Jeez.
I do not advise, do not recommend.
Okay,
Not
good
at
to
all.
know.
Yeah, no,
Good to
not
know.
it.
I've never done
And
one, but
honestly, I think you should be doing things. Your body is meant to cleanse itself and
Yeah.
detox on a daily basis. I think you should be doing things to support that. And I think that even some of these cleanses are very dangerous. They're not good for your body. They throw things off. I think implementing things that are going to detox, I sauna almost every day, at least 5 nights a week. We sauna, take a little binder with it, do some diatomaceous earth, gentle things to help support your cleansing process. Absolutely. Especially with all the toxins, but a one and done, it's not going to do you any good. It's going to release a lot of stuff in your system. How much of it is going to get out? Very scary to me and not sustainable, right? So if you can't do it every day, do you really want to do it? I don't know. It doesn't.
As
seem
opposed to
balanced.
that, what do you think about IF, intermittent fasting?
Yes, I think, of course. So yes, because 2 to 3 hours before bedtime, you should not be eating. You
Yeah.
should be sleeping 8 hours. So that's 11 hours of fasting naturally. For women, I wouldn't go much above 12 to 14. I see women push it and they feel really good for a while, but their hormones just tank. And for men, I don't like, especially if you're active, I really don't like you to go less than 8 hours of eating window a day. I feel, and the other reason is, so if you're going to do that, you really need to get like amino acids, because what will happen is you'll start using your muscle as fuel and you'll actually gain body fat. So people that do this,
They get skinny fat.
they lose muscle mass and they gain body fat a lot of times. So if you had a DEXA scan, it's just not worth it. It's really not.
Okay. So, I mean, we are getting kind of an IF if you do the 3 hours
Yeah.
before.
I
and
think
then-
and that's more just natural eating.
Yeah, that's a nice
really
natural pattern.
should be how you do.
Great.
Nice.
yeah, that's good.
And a lot of people will say they wake up like between 2 to 3 a.m. with issues with sleeping and stuff. This is, I don't know if
This
you guys
fixes
have.
that mostly.
It does help, but also making sure you have enough protein, because a lot of times that's actually your blood sugar going low. That's when your liver cleanses, and your liver is basically telling you it's hungry at that time if you're doing that. So
So you
making
wake
sure-
up and eat a big bowl of cereal.
No,
Frosted
you just want to
Flakes.
make sure the next night you're eating a little bit more. Sometimes people need like a potato or a sweet
Yeah.
potato or something with dinner. To
No, but
really-
people do. They wake up at 2 a.m. and that's their solution is to go eat a big bowl of cereal. Not a great idea,
Right,
but they
right,
do it.
right, because your liver's
The
hungry.
midnight munchies. Yeah.
Yeah. Especially after you've been doing it a really long time and you've gotten rid of a lot of the fat, right? So you don't have a lot of storage to reach into, because the first 6 months you're doing this, you feel great and you're using all that fat that was on your liver. And
Right.
once you're leaned out, then you need to just make sure you're supporting your body. So a lot of people go into this with the mentality of getting healthy, but then once they're there, they don't know how to maintain. And so it's a little bit different. You gotta cheat a little, or have a little bit more carbs like that.
Right. That was awesome.
Yeah.
All about balance.
Yeah. Yeah.
Strong base.
Yeah. Balance and strong base. Yeah,
It's,
jiu-jitsu and
it's all
health.
about the base.
Yeah.
No trouble.
for real.
No trouble.
Well, I feel like I have so many more questions,
Well,
and would
Yeah.
love to continue, talking about these subjects and optimizing ourselves for sure on
Yeah.
another podcast.
Okay,
For sure. But,
absolutely.
Well, we're 120 in. Rogan would
Wow.
probably go another hour 40.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'm ready, but this guy's got a baby.
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. Exactly.
Absolutely.
Yeah. We can, get people excited for the next one.
Well,
we-
and maybe what we do is, I think we're about due for labs and an appointment and stuff
Yeah,
like that. So
right.
maybe we can tie that in a little bit next time if
Mhm.
you're open to it. And
Sure.
As long as we're not violating HIPAA, right?
well, if he says it's okay, they're not violating anything.
Yeah,
yes,
there you go.
yes. Yeah.
That
Right
way
on.
they can kind of be along with your journey too.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. That actually would be great.
So takeaways from today, I just want to throw this out here. Number one, don't clean out your butthole. Don't do that.
No.
But do get sunshine on it.
Yes.
Get sunshine on your butthole,
Okay.
but don't clean it out, and stop eating 3 hours before you go to bed. Other than that, I think that's
And then
that
the
pretty much
water
wraps it
too.
up.
The water and the blood.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Mineralize,
so much.
mineralizing
Give blood.
properly and donate blood.
A lot
Donate blood.
to take in from this podcast. I think, we were talking right before we started just about like listening back on some of the podcasts. This is definitely one I'll listen back on,
Yeah.
And we might not have to do another podcast. This might be everything I know.
That was it.
Well,
Yeah.
next time we can just chat.
Yeah. Well, this is really cool. And Krystal, to have you, in the Reno community is so valuable. And I just want to thank you for taking the time to talk with us and for getting to be on each other's podcast. Cause
Yeah.
I know that this is kind of going to be a double podcast, but I
Super.
really,
Yeah.
really
Hey,
appreciate
you know
it.
what? I love working with athletes too, because I just feel like when you have the potential and you've put in that much work, everything I can do to help you get to where you need to be, I have so much respect for it. So super, super grateful to be partnering with you guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you
That's
so much,
amazing. Yeah.
Crystal. And if you're in the Reno area and you just, need to fix some things or want to dial in your health a little more, go on over to Rev Health in Ranchera.
And if you
And
want to
check.
learn how to kill somebody with your bare hands,
Yeah, that's right.
come to All Ground,
Yes.
where they teach jiu-jitsu and kickboxing.
And eventually,
Dueling.
Yeah. Sword duels.
Sword duels, yeah.
I'm going to order swords.
Don't need to
After
give
this.
blood anymore.
I'll bring the lidocaine and the staples.
Yeah.
Alrighty.
All right.
All right.
Great
Awesome.
work.
Awesome.